If you had all the confidence in the world, what would you do? What type of life would you be living? How would you be spending your time? Who would you be spending your time with? What's keeping you back from getting that? What's keeping you back from getting the life that you want? Whatever you said, that's not true. You're lying to yourself. It's time for you to be very clear, very transparent, and honest with yourself about where you're currently at and where you want to go. You are the only person keeping yourself back. No one else but you. You can't blame anyone else for where you're at because in a way you chose to be where you're at. And if you blame someone else for that, you're giving someone else the power over your life, and thus you can't change it. You have to take ownership over your life. You have to say, I can change my life because I want to. Because I want to change it. If you can do that, then you can get anything you want. So how do you get there? The first thing is to become aware. Become aware of your self-doubt and low self-esteem. Or maybe your self-esteem isn't low, but it's average. And even then, you're not living the life you want because you're holding yourself back. So how do you get that life that you want? Number one is awareness. It starts with awareness. You must become aware of how you currently feel, of where you're currently at, in order to know what it is that you have to do to alter your life. Without knowing your starting point, you won't know the changes that you have to make. Just as important as it is to have your starting point, it's also very important to know your goal, to know what it is that you're working towards. You see, if you have no goal set and you're just flowing through the motion, you have no trajectory, you have no idea whether what you're doing is the correct process, the correct method, or whether it's not. Having the goal gives you a path. And the path isn't always going to be clear. For the most part, knowing where you're going gives you an idea as to what you have to do to get there. Both of those things require self-reflection. You yourself have to decide, what is my goal? What is it I want to work towards? And what steps am I not doing in my life right now that are keeping me back from getting there? There's things in your life, there's things deep down that you know that you should be doing, but you aren't doing, that's keeping you back from living the life you deserve. And that's a conversation between you and you. You can try to have that conversation with someone else, and maybe you could fool them, but the one person you can never fool is yourself. So it's time for you to be honest with yourself. How do you have to make changes in your life to get what you want? And one of the best ways to go about figuring out what you want is by writing down into a journal. Now, journaling is a way for you to reflect on your thoughts, reflect on your daily life, reflect on where you're currently at, reflect on your goals, and if you're progressively working towards them, or if you are living a life that doesn't really align with your goals. And that's something that you personally have to decide. You have to decide what it is that you have to do to get there. And you probably already know. You have the answers within you. Maybe you don't have all the answers, but a majority of them you do. The stepping stones, where it starts, you have that. You just have to figure out what you need to do, why you're not doing it, and how can you start doing them. Because as soon as you start doing it, you'll start feeling different. At first you might feel uncomfortable, nervous, you might feel anxious, but the more you do it, the more you realize that you're working towards something that's actually meaningful to you. And that for you is going to help you develop a trust within yourself to where you're going to begin to trust yourself more and more to put these goals and put these milestones in your life, and you'll know that you're going to accomplish them. Use the journaling for self-reflection and to ask yourself the hard questions. Ask yourself the hard questions that you are currently afraid to ask yourself. Ask yourself questions like, what do I really want to do with my life? Where do I see myself in 10 years? Am I happy with where I currently am? What would happiness look like to me? What would make me feel content? What would make me feel fulfillment? What does a meaningful life look like to me? Those are powerful questions, and those are questions that you should ask yourself. Those questions, for each one of us, it's going to be a different answer. Learn to listen to your own inner voice. You have a voice inside of you that tells you answers to your questions. It's an instinct. It's a voice in the back of your head that speaks to you when you most need it. The one that gives you good advice. The one that makes you feel better about yourself. Not the one that speaks negatively to you. You need the one that encourages you, that makes you feel better about yourself. Each one of us have an inner voice, an instinct within us that guides us. At times when you have that feeling about something and then later on it turns out that that feeling was right, well, that is our inner voice talking to us. And so the question for you is, what is your inner voice telling you? Each one of us has an inner voice, and it speaks to us according to what we value, according to what's important to us. So what is important to you? What do you value? What are you currently not doing in your life that your inner voice is telling you to do? Your inner voice is trying to guide you to get right back on the path that would most be meaningful to you. Learn to work with your thoughts. That inner voice, it's helpful if you learn to work with it. Then you can accomplish the things you want in life. But if you let the inner voice, the negative voice, like an ego, for example, if you let it down talk you or make you feel bad about yourself, then that's not the right thoughts to pay attention to. It's not the right voice in within you to listen to. You should be listening to the one that makes you feel better about yourself. The one that makes you feel like you're a better person. Because you are. Each one of us here in this world, for the most part, is trying to do good things. The second thing you have to understand is, why do you have that problem? Where did it come from? Who did it come from? Some of us are functioning through our life with limiting beliefs that were passed on to us by our family, our friends, television, media, and sometimes we created those limiting beliefs by ourselves. And these limiting beliefs are part of the reason why we're holding ourselves back. Because somewhere along your life, someone, something, or you told yourself that you didn't deserve something. That you didn't deserve to live a certain way. Or you didn't deserve to have these type of life experiences. Or have these type of friendships or relationships or a lifestyle. The interesting thing is that the younger we are, the more impressionable we are. Children are very rapid when it comes to learning because their mind is like a sponge. It absorbs everything. And so it's a good thing and it's also a bad thing, because if they're absorbing good things, then it benefits their life. But if they're absorbing bad things, then it's affecting their life. And the thing is, as we get older and learn a whole bunch of bad things, we're living our life not knowing that we created, in some way, some limiting beliefs when we were kids, when we were children, when we created these perceptions of the world we live in, that now as adults, it still affects us. Those perceptions are affecting our life, whether we are conscious about them or not, whether we are aware about them or not. And so, awareness being the first thing, the second thing is understanding why you even created that limiting belief. By understanding the source, now you can understand what you have to do to break that limiting belief. By acknowledging that it exists, by seeing it for what it is, that's the only way that you can stop living that way. It's important to also practice acceptance. Accepting life for what it is, accepting for what you've experienced up to that point, gives you the ability to let go and to move on with your life. And that's a big decision to make, to let go and move on. You've been holding on to a lot of stuff from your past that now, when you have to let it go, it might be difficult because it's become habit. You've gotten used to it. It's become comfortable. And now you have to teach yourself that being uncomfortable as you're growing is okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to not feel like you have the answer for everything, because you're not going to a majority of the time. You have to accept the fact that you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk because you're choosing to get out of your comfort zone to become the person you need to become to get the life that you want to get. And it's a risk. You're leaving a lot of things behind. You're growing out of your shell, your comfort zone. And it's important to ask yourself, Would you rather live a life where you took a risk and got what you wanted than live a life where you were too afraid to take a risk and eventually it's too late? So it's a moment for you to reflect on the fact that you have to accept your past, you have to accept the present, and you have to accept the future. Understand that you're going to figure out what it is you want, you're going to figure out what it is that you need to do to get there, and you're okay with both the ups and the downs that come during that experience. Understand that it's not really going to be comfortable majority of the time. In fact, there's going to be times when it's going to be feeling easier to quit than not to quit. But that's where you have to remain consistent and honest with yourself about what you truly want. Uncomfortable feelings during growth are normal. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Part of acceptance is accepting that whether you are comfortable or not, you're going to accept the outcome. You're accepting the feeling at that moment, knowing that that's part of the process to get what you want. That's part of the process to get your goal. That's part of the process to get the life that you desire. You're not going to get the life you want by living the life you currently live if it doesn't align with the life that you want. You'll get more of the same of what you currently have. The third thing is that you have to stop playing the victim. If you live your life as if you are the victim, you're going to limit yourself because you have no control. You have this mindset that you can't control your life because you are experiencing your life and things are happening towards you instead of you creating your life, instead of you making life happen. It's time for you to change that mindset. Stop being the victim and take ownership for your life. Make a decision to create the life you want. Live the life you want. Live an intentional life. Don't live a life out of mediocrity, knowing deep down in your heart that that's not a life that you want. Don't live a life in fear when deep down you know that there's more to life and you can get it. You just have to believe in yourself. Take complete ownership over your life during the bad times and the good times. Admit that you are responsible for both the good and the bad, and that because you are responsible, you can make decisions that influence both outcomes. You can change the good and the bad in your life, and you can change your perception of them, which is most important, because two people can be put in the same situation and both of them will have a different perception. If one person has a perception of defeat and the other person has a perception of blessing, then one of them sees this and lets it bring them down, destroy them, or it turns them into a person that pities themselves or feels weaker or just lives a life that's not ideal. While the other one sees this and is like, how can I make this work towards my advantage? How can you make this unfortunate situation, or how can you make this thing that at the moment feels like a curse become in your favor? Where is the good in this? How can you find the good in this? How can you make it work towards your favor? Taking ownership over your life will require you to face your fears and move towards the things that you have been avoiding. You will begin to accept reality for what it is, and you will start doing the things that you hadn't been doing. And when you start doing that, your life will begin to slowly change, or maybe massively. But for the most part, most change happens in little tiny, short, minuscule changes. Accept that your life is going to feel hard. Growth, it's uncomfortable. It's going to feel hard. But by taking ownership for your life, you'll take ownership for whatever feeling you'll be having, and you'll take ownership for any process or any outcome that happens, because you will be in control of your life. You will be the one that decides whether it will work or not. The good thing about taking ownership of your life is that it's going to expand within other areas of your life. You're going to start feeling more confident, more self-trust, and more self-belief in yourself. You're going to start trusting yourself more in everyday life, and you're going to make better decisions because you know that you're becoming self-reliant. You begin to have all of these characteristics expand into your life because you're taking ownership for your life. You're no longer feeling like you're not in control. In fact, you're choosing to feel like you are in control. Like if something's not in your favor, that you can do something about it. And that requires action. When you start mixing ownership and action together, You start getting those 3 characteristics mentioned because now you're becoming self-reliant, self-confident, and self-trusting. You start realizing that you can do the things that you believe you can achieve simply because you've already taken action towards it and you are starting to get the results that you want. You are already starting to work towards the results that you want. The last thing is to make the change. You have to make the change. And you have to make the change regardless of how uncomfortable it is. Because if you don't change, you will get more of the same. You have to remain consistent with that change. And you have to do it. No one else can do it for you. Each one of us is going through our own internal battle. And because of that, you have to live your own battles for yourself. You have to have your own battles. You have to save yourself. You are responsible for your life. And that means that you have to make the changes in your life, make the changes in your perceptions, in the way you interpret life, for you to become the person that you need to become to get what you want. You can't change your life by continuing to do the things that you're doing now. You have to do new things. You have to make changes. If you continue down the path that you're currently in, and let's say you continue 5 to 10 years from now, if you don't make the changes you need to make to get where you want to be, 5 to 10 years are going to pass and you're going to realize that you haven't changed much. You haven't gotten closer to your goals as much as you would like. And so that's why it's important for you to make that change now, today, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what you think about yourself, where you're currently at. You have to make the decision that you will start taking action. Even if it's 1% every single day, you have to take action every single day towards that goal, regardless of how small it is. It's better to move in small, slow steps than to not move at all, than to be stuck in the same place because you're too afraid to take action, because you're too afraid to take ownership for your life, because you're too afraid to make changes to your life, because you're too afraid to believe in yourself. So it's time. It's time for you. It's time for your loved ones. It's time for your life. It's time for your future self to start getting the best version of yourself. They deserve it. You deserve it. It's time to change your internal world so that your external world can change.